Hello, and welcome back to Learn All the Nodes. If you remember from last week, we built a friendly little web server that sure likes to say hello. In fact, you can go to anywhere on this site, and that's all it says. I mean, we could go to the root, we can go to hello, we can even go to the less friendly, I don't like you, and it just says hello world. I'm going to go with saying that that's a bug and not a feature, and that this code might not quite be ready to be shipped yet, but no worries. Today we're going to look at how to fix that and actually route our requests to different parts of the application. The first thing that we need to look at is our request handler from last time, called handler, and it's just a function that takes a rec and a res object. And let's have a look at what that rec object is. It's an instance of HTTP incoming message, and if we scroll down here, we can see that it has this URL property, which we can use to branch off of to route the request to the correct place in the application. So let's have a look at what this actually looks like in the context of a request. To do that, we just add a little console.log statement here to put that out. And then, of course, we need to restart the server. Then we go hit our let's go back to the friendly version of the URL. And we did that. So what do we have? We can see the slash here because we were going to the root path. Now this one right here is because the browser was looking for a fav icon, which we happen not to have. All right, so let's say we wanted to do some routing here. We would need to basically branch off of that URL. Now we can get fancy and do this with regular expressions and all kinds of stuff, but let's just look at a really simple version here. We're going to support, of course, our root path. We could use a switch statement too, but we're not going to. We also want to support, let's say, the awesome part of the website that does all the marketing that will sell our amazing app. And then we should probably handle the case where we don't support the route at all. So let's go ahead and grab our things here. And then we'll need to get the actual marketing copy in there. So let's just go ahead and add that by alls to products. I'm already wanting to pull out my credit card. And then we'll also need to handle the case where the route isn't found and send a 404, not 494. And then just put page not found. And a little bit of cleanup. Now we just need to restart our server to pick up those changes. And it probably also helps to save the file before we restart the server. Head on over to our web browser, and as we would expect, the root path stays the same. But now when we go to marketing, oh, look at that, we get that great notice there. And then when Mr. Unhappy comes back, we see page not found, and we would have gotten a 404 error there as well, which is the purpose of putting 404 right here in our write head call. So let's say the requirement comes down the pipe that we need to support file uploads. Let's just add another route here then. And just for good measure, we'll call it uploads. We change our content type to text HTML. And then we're going to whisk into here the markup that we need to make that happen. And there's our markup. It's just some HTML that puts up a file upload in a form for us. We, of course, need to restart the server. So let's do that. And then we head back to our page here and go to the uploads path, and here's a file selector. So let's go ahead and select that file, and then we upload it, and uh-oh, what happened? If we check out the code and look at our upload form, we can see that it is posting to uploads, which is this route, but all we do for uploads is display the form. We actually need to distinguish between the get and post request here, because at this point the only thing that we're looking at is the path that it hits. Well, back over to our documentation for the incoming message, and we can see that it has this property called method that we can use. Let's just inspect what we're getting. Check out what the method is. We start our server, and then we hit here. Let's actually take advantage of that real quick. So that's going to re-trigger the upload, and then just for good measure, we'll get it once as well. We come back, and what do we see? First, we see the post that we got from refreshing the page and resubmitting, and then we see get from just getting the page regularly. So we need to distinguish between those in our handler here. We just add yet another little check here. If we're getting the page, then actually we should probably just change this to if we post it, then we'll say that we are handling the upload. And then in all other cases, we'll just display the form. Just in case someone gets fancy and sends us a delete right now when we're not ready for it. But we should also show that we're handling this. And for the time being, just set this back to plain. And go ahead and do that for the time being. So let's restart the server again. Head back to the browser. And now when we resubmit the form, we see we get the handling it message. Well, that's all well and good, but the astute observer would notice that we haven't actually done anything with a file at all. So let's look at what we need to do to make that happen. The first thing is that we need to make a slight change to our form here because we are not actually handling post data as it is. We need to set the multi-part encoding there. Well, we were handling post data, just not files. So the next thing that we need to do is actually receive the file data itself. Now, the request object is just a stream, so we can add event listeners to it. So for example, we can listen to its data event. And of course, we'll need some place to store that. So whenever we get a chunk of data, we can just add that to our little upload variable. And just for good measure, so we can see it's happening, let's add in a little call like this. And then we can move on to actually handling the request when it's all done. To do that, we need to subscribe to the end event. And then we'll want to pull our old handling code into here. And then just for fun, we will have a look at how big our upload was. And with that, we can start our server and then head back on over to the browser where we do the upload. And we click the upload button. We can see it's taking a little bit of time. And huzzah! When we head back to our server, we can see that there were all these chunks that got uploaded. They don't make a lot of sense to us as humans, but we can see that the final size of the upload was 876,484. So please don't consider this upload handler an example of production grade code. It's just meant to show the different parts that go into receiving a file upload. What you'll notice right off the bat is we take the entire file and stick it into memory. Now, for a single picture, maybe you can get away with that, but if you're talking about large file uploads or a whole lot of users, you'll very quickly starve your server of the memory it needs to keep running. In addition, this whole way of handling the routes has gotten out of hand really quickly. To have to add another case to our if-else here every single time we want to add another route, imagine adding 5 more routes, and that's not uncommon for a web application. That is one of the quirks of using as low level of a framework as Node. One approach to try to mitigate that is proposed in the book by Manuel Kiesling. I'm sorry, sir, if I just butchered your name, but he does a really good introductory tutorial here to Node, pretty in-depth, definitely worth checking out, where he structures the code a lot better to handle the multiple routes. So definitely worth a read. Now at this point, you might be saying something like, boy, you're not doing a great job of selling Node here. Or I don't know, maybe you're from the generation that coded uphill in the snow both ways on the way to school. My preferred solution to this problem is a Node framework called Express.js. At this point in the episode, we only have time for a brief preview of how this can help us. The reason we didn't just dive straight into Express is because I thought it was worth it to see the problems, the pain that Express would actually be solving and understanding what was going on before jumping into a framework like that. So what would our application look like if we were using Express? In the interest of time, let's just wave our magic wand here, and here's our app using Express. So we don't have a lot of time to dive too deep into what Express does, but the first thing to notice is that instead of that one big route handling function, now we can specify each route on its own and give it its own function. Under the hood, Express is going to be doing some sort of matching like what we did based on these paths here, but we don't have to see that in our application code, which really cleans it up a lot. Also notice that handling post versus get, that's handled just by calling the post or get method and supplying it a path. In fact, our file uploads got a lot prettier too. We're using what's called a middleware with this call here, this body parser one, which when we actually do the post, we get access to all the files that are uploaded in this rec.files. So let's see that in action real quick. Kick off the upload here. And we can see that it's done. So when we head back here, we see we got this nice big array, or I'm sorry, object with a whole bunch of information. And one thing to notice, it even put it into a temp file for us, so we're not dealing with this directly in memory. Well, there you go. In this episode, we built an app that actually did more than one thing. We even handled file uploads. We did see that the code was getting quickly out of hand dealing with the route handling, but then we looked briefly at Express, which removes a lot of that pain. In the next episode, we're going to be getting a whole lot more into Express, so I hope you'll come join us next time, and until then, happy coding.